Good morning, Crystal. How are you?
I am fine. And yourself?
I'm hot.
Me too. That's been
Tomorrow.
my response week every day.
Yeah,
How are you? Hot,
hot.
hot, hot. That's all
And
I
we're
can
not
say.
even in the Midwest.
We're
We
not
have
even
no
in the
clue.
Midwest. And it's a different. It's not our regular dry heat. It's actually a humid heat. You can be just sitting, and all of a sudden, water just start pouring off your face, just
Yeah.
off, just it's horrible. You can't even go get relief outside.
Yeah.
There
It's
is none.
it's a lot of things, and one of those is annoying.
Yeah, yeah. There you go. Yep. But I'm here. Had to go
Good.
minimum makeup because it would be running all over the place. It was a struggle, but I'm here. How
You
was your
look
weekend?
fantastic as always.
Thank you. How was your weekend?
Hot.
Okay. No need for no more, nothing. I got it. You did minimum movement.
Yeah, man. I tell you, it was. You know
Because
what?
that's
It was
all we
my
can do.
time. It was a good time. So
Yeah. Good. So we're doing rebalancing why, and how.
yes, that's what we're talking about is rebalancing. What, why, and how. I know, as a retirement plan advisor, I spend a lot of time talking with people about what they ought to do with their retirement plans. Number one, get a well diversified portfolio. Number two, get the right asset allocation. Let's call that number one. Get the right asset allocation. And number two, make sure you diversify that allocation. So first, how much, what amount of stocks, bonds, international should you have? And then let's make sure that's diversified, spread that money around big companies, small companies, large companies, bonds, all that kind of stuff, fixed income,
Mm-hmm.
long, short, mid, whatever, nicely diversified. I'm not saying you need to get it all, but nicely diversified. And then, of
Okay.
course, rebalance the portfolio. And then we don't really talk about that. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about exactly what rebalancing is. So let's do that. But before we jump in, let me read your bio, and then we'll get started. How's that?
Okay.
Okay. So hello everyone. Please welcome my friend and colleague Crystal Mitchell. She is a business coach and consultant. She's the CEO of Mitchell Business Solutions, the co-director of Recycling Black Dollars. She's also the co-host of the Business Zone with Crystal and Gilbert, another weekly online radio show, which I might add, I haven't had the lovely guest that she had on Friday, but we don't have to talk about that because I'm not there.
And she
And
was awesome, man. She was awesome.
and she's also an instructor at San Antonio Community College, a certified network for teaching entrepreneurship instructor, and a QuickBooks Pro Advisor financial strategist. Hey, Crystal, how are you?
I'm wonderful. Hot, but I'm wonderful.
All right.
And we did. Oh my God. So thank you so much. I know we're going to jump into our topic in a minute, but I do want to thank you so much for the referral. She
Oh,
was so refreshing.
yeah.
Um, Gilbert is in love because she called him Jabert. So now everybody's on notice to call him Jabert.
She does have that lovely French accent. She's really
Right, exactly. So, or he's not answering or responding to anyone unless he's called Jabert. But she's amazing.
That's it. We are talking about Valerie Dufix. She is a person who finds money in places you wouldn't find. So if you have issues getting money for almost any sort of reason, give her a call. And I wish I had her contact info, but we can
Well,
get her.
actually, if they like, I can put it. We do have. Yeah, we have a chat. Yeah, we have a chat. I can send it over to you in the chat. The link to our show last week, because she puts all her information in
There you
the
go.
show. Yeah,
Yeah,
so I'll send it to you, and then you can. But she's amazing.
yeah,
Her company, Demont Carrere Capital Group,
yeah,
Capital
yeah.
Capital Group.
She's a big wine fan. Of course, she is French, and as you know, I love wine, but I'm not at the level that she's at. So I'm waiting just to get crushed by flavors and knowledge and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and from France, from the Alps, yeah, you gonna get crushed. So don't even pretend like you know how much she knows.
I'm happy to be that way, Valerie's friend. Okay.
All righty.
Let's get into rebalancing. It is one of my favorite subjects because in retirement plans, we do it on a regular basis. So what is it? Number one, simply put, it's selling the winners and buying the losers. Now, this is incredibly important specifically to retirement plans. Outside of retirement plans, we do this as well, and usually with a little bit more, shall we say, a little bit more judgment, a little bit more conversation about what's going on sometimes, right?
Okay.
But inside the retirement plan, we do it automatically. It's best to do it on a regular basis. So here's what it is. If we back up just a little bit, we like to have the right mix of stocks and bonds, and like to have the right risk tolerance. That's the big deal, is the right risk tolerance. Now, why do we want that? So first of all, we want that because, as one of my old managers said to me, the investment mix that keeps you up at night is not a good investment. And many of us, all of us, don't have the same investment choice, right? It's one of the reasons why I have a little bit of problem with target date funds, because they assume that everyone that's a particular age has the same level of risk tolerance. And while that can be a proven and effective way, and it is for a lot of very smart people to do a lot of very cool things for themselves, their children, their organizations, it's not very personalized to one particular individual. And I really like that personalized approach. So by getting the right mix that's appropriate for you, that is taking that questionnaire, and I would say take that questionnaire based on what's going on in your life. So, if you're married, or you're going to get married, or if you have children, if you're going to get children, then you as a 45-year-old may look different than someone who doesn't have those concerns, right? So
right.
First, get the right mix, and that's the mix that you're comfortable with. Now, admittedly, the more risk you take, the more money you make. But as I've sort of suggested on this show before, I do happen to have an ex-girlfriend. I'm just going to make a little bit of fun of her. When I first met her, the right mixed tolerance for her was probably about 80% bonds and 20% stock. She did not like to lose money. So if you put her money into the market and it went down, that was not going to be good, right? And not only that, but she would share that pain with me. So in order for me to get some sleep, in order for her to get some sleep, and the way I usually say that, in order for her to get some sleep, and in order, especially for me to get some sleep, we need to give her a very conservative portfolio. So it didn't take advantage of the market downturns. It didn't take advantage of the market upturns, but it was there when she looked at her portfolio. Okay. That was some time ago. And now that she's in her extreme early 50s, let's put it that way, extreme early 50s, maybe her 40s. Anyway, now that she's dramatically older, she's a bit more mellow. So I would say the right mix for her, and I haven't talked to her about this in a while, but I'd say the right mix for her is probably about 50-50, right? Or maybe even 60% stock and 40% bonds, because she's mellowed out a bit. She's not worried about it that much. She's got a different personality. So don't let anybody say that because of your particular age, you need to have this much in stocks and this much in bonds.
Right. Yeah, and that's so important, because obviously she was of the mindset, she was very thoughtful, or forward thinking of what her future would look like. So, obviously that creates some cautiousness in one, especially if one is that individual that has planned out their life, from their 20s on up to their 50s and 60s. Then you want to be conservative, because you got, a lot to lose, even though you can recover, I would think. But now that she's older,
Yep.
She now kind of can see the far away distance, whereas in
Mhm.
her 20s, she wasn't able to see what that looked like and whatever other challenges more likely would show up during that
Yeah.
time frame.
Well put. Well put.
Mm-hmm.
I would only add to that that this is the only thing that she's fairly conservative in. This is the kind of woman that will take a year off from work and go travel in Europe and just like right now, let's go, right? And she's
Right,
the
right.
kind of woman that she likes to drive fast, and so she's not one of those conservative people, except in here. This
Mm,
right. So we really needed to take a questionnaire to find out where she was. And then throughout her life, she changed. At some times she was a bit more conservative, sometimes she's a little bit more or less conservative. So you
mm-hmm.
want to get the right mix that's right for you at that particular time and then evaluate that. That's the whole deal there.
Right,
Okay.
right.
Once we do that, that's where our subject comes in, rebalancing the portfolio. Because what rebalancing does is it gets you back to the risk tolerance that's appropriate for you. Now, why is that important? Well, the risk tolerance that you have is the way that you look at the market. You're telling the market, this is the amount of risk I'm able to handle. Okay. So if this is the amount of risk I'm able to handle, don't be jacking me up. Don't be putting more risk than I can handle in the mix because I can't handle that. So if this is the way I want to look at the market, this is the way I want to gauge my risk and see, and this is the lens that I want to use. Let's get back to there on a regular basis. And what that actually means is we're going to sell the winners, place where we made money, and we're going to buy the losers so that we get back to the risk tolerance that's appropriate for us. Now, why do
Mm.
we want to do that? Why not just let it go, babe? Just let it go. That's a song. Just let it go.
I don't know about anybody else, but money is not something that I just let go. That's just me.
Okay. Well said. Well said.
Want to get my attention, start talking about my money.
Hello. Hello. Well,
That's
and
just me.
good because no, that's not you. That's not just you at all. That lots of us feel that way, and that's great. And that's why we want to rebalance our portfolio because it gets us back to where we're supposed to feel, where we're supposed to be with
Mm,
regard to our risk tolerance. And so, to the effect of how much that portfolio gets quote unquote out of whack, it's away from what our mix is. That determines how much we're going to sell and how much we're going to buy, and that
mm,
determines how much we're going to make. It's so important, right? Because the way we make money in the retirement plan is that we buy and sell according to what our risk tolerance is. So that's why I always say to people, please take that questionnaire so we know what your risk tolerance is, so that when we rebalance your portfolio, we go back to the place that you're comfortable and you're comfortable making money, right?
mm.
If we just let it go, then we'll have situations that we had many years ago. I don't want to mention them, but many years ago when, the initials are 2008 and 2009, back
Mm.
then, where people took a look at their portfolio because,
Right.
07, 06, 05, those were good years. The market was bumping, right? And people were letting their portfolios go and they were like, wow, this is great. Well, they didn't rebalance their portfolio. And so when the market tanked, right, and it did, it took a wallop there, they were not at the proper risk tolerance. And
Mm,
so they lost a lot of money. And I'm going to say it that way, they lost a lot of money. I usually don't say lost because we're in the market and the market goes up and down. And so I usually say their balances went down. But in this
mm-hmm.
situation, I'm going to say they lost a lot of money because they didn't have enough time to recover, however much time that is. They lost more than they thought they were going to be able to handle,
Mm.
right? Because the risk tolerance of the market was not their particular risk tolerance. They were not ready to take that much risk, right? Although their portfolio said, yes, you can handle this kind of risk because you have a portfolio that is 90% stock and only 10% bonds. And stocks go up and down a bit more than bonds do. So that you can handle the risk, right?
Right.
That's
Right.
what that's what their portfolio said. What they said was, I can only handle this amount of risk over here, right? Their questionnaire said they can handle this amount of risk, but the market said you can handle this amount of risk over here, right? So
Mm-hmm.
they weren't aligned with the amount of risk. If they had said to the market, when you get right down to it, all I can really handle is this amount of risk right here, then they would have adjusted their portfolio. They wouldn't have lost as much. It was a tough year, so we lost a lot of money. And the
Yeah.
recovery would have been dramatically better if they had gotten back to the correct risk tolerance for them. You see how that works?
Yeah, exactly. And it's
Yeah.
so interesting because that, there was so many other things in addition to that going on to your portfolio, your home, and a whole bunch of other stuff was happening. Yeah, it was kind of a free for all, actually.
Very, very good point. And I think you're exactly right. And I think knowing a little bit about where your money is invested, or what your strategy is going in, I think is very, very important. It's almost like driving a car. I mean, you don't need to know how an internal combustion engine works, but you do need to know that you have to put gas in there and you got to get the oil
Mm-hmm.
change. You need to know
Mm-hmm.
that, right? So I'm not suggesting that you need to know the inner workings of the market, and that'd be very difficult anyhow for any of us. But you
Mm-hmm.
do need to know, okay, what lens am I looking at it through, and how do I make sure that's what my portfolio is experiencing in a risk tolerance phase. And so then the question becomes, okay, well, so if rebalancing is going to sell the winners and buy the losers, and that's actually going to get me to the point where I'm actually collecting more and more money at the level of risk that's appropriate for me, how often should I do it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, okay. If you want to make me happy, I would say at least once a quarter. Sometimes people do it once a month. And I can remember being on the phone when I first got into business, and people would call up and we would get their portfolio and we would rebalance it by hand. And we'd say, oh, well, let's put a little here and a little there. And we get them to the back to the right mix that was appropriate for them. We don't have to do that anymore. Yeah. Now you can just, if you're in a retirement plan, you can set your asset allocation, and then the program will ask you how often you want to rebalance your mix, and you can choose generally monthly, quarterly, annually. Then you can just hit the button and it'll do it for you automatically. And that's a great way to go. Now, which one of those should you choose? I like the idea of quarterly. You could probably hedge your bet by doing it monthly. I've never seen a program that allows you to do rebalancing weekly. That
Mm.
doesn't mean it's not there. Right? So if you really, sometimes we as advisors will say, okay, let them run for a while, let them run and then bring it back. Let them run and then bring it back. That's a very common thing for folks in my position to say. Sometimes we just say, look, quarterly is enough.
And quarterly is a good, I mean, because obviously, even when we look in my field, when we look at financials, we're looking at them on a quarterly basis, unless, of course, I'm looking, for capital or something of that nature. But I would imagine in the stock market, everything from day to day, everything changes, right? You can't even you could not, if you looked at it daily or weekly, next month it could be totally different because
Exactly.
it's responding to everything.
Mhm. Yes, it's a very dynamic situation, a very dynamic thing that's going on there. And that's a good thing, because dynamism helps us win and make more money, right? And
Mm-hmm.
rebalancing the portfolio does exactly that. It helps us make more money. So, this concept that you could just let it go and put the money in there, in my opinion, and I've done a little bit of research on this, in my opinion, that actually makes you less money than if you get to tag a windfall, right?
Mm.
So if you can just imagine, the prices that you're investing in keep going up and up and up, but the amount that you're able to put in stays the same.
Mm.
In actuality, you're buying less and less and less, although it be more expensive, right? Whereas if you're able to take advantage of a couple of downturns and you get to buy a bunch cheap, and then eventually when the market goes up, you get to capitalize on that windfall.
Right.
Now we're talking. Now we're talking. And your risk tolerance is going to allow you to do that at a particular level. That is the level that you're comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
So once you hit that button to rebalance, you're saying, okay, for example, my mix is 50% stock, 50% bonds.
Mm-hmm.
So every quarter, I'm going to make sure, you're going to help me make sure, that whatever that mix is, that happens to my portfolio because people are buying and selling and all that kind of stuff. However, my portfolio gets out of whack, at least every quarter, I know I'm going to hit the reset button, bring it all back to where it's supposed to be, and I'm going to reap the benefits of that.
Right. Now, what for our audience's sake, what is the difference between the stocks and the bonds? And stocks you obviously see everywhere. I mean, if you Yahoo, it opens up to the very top of the page with your stocks, right? But
Yeah.
what are bonds, and why would anyone invest in them?
Oh, good question. So it's probably something we want to break down over a couple of shows, but
That
right
sounds
here and
good.
right now, since we're talking about rebalancing, let's just hit it pretty quick.
Okay.
So the stock market, we know, is not the economy, right? The
Right.
stock market is the selling of goods and services inside the market, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, what is a stock? A stock is what we call equity. It's a piece of a company. So, when a company goes public, lots of times they want people to give them money, and so what they do is they sell off, quote unquote, shares of their company, i.e., ownership of their company, and that's what you buy in the market. So when we talk about large companies, we're talking about companies that have over $1 billion of shares out there in the market. And that means
Mm-hmm.
people own that. So when we
Okay.
talk about share owners, we're talking about stock. We're talking about I think, one of our biggest bugaboos in our economy. No one's ever asked me, but what I think is shareholder equity, right?
Yeah.
When we're running a company, because we want to make sure that the share owners are rewarded because they own the company. That makes
Mm-hmm.
sense, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When we don't balance that with goodwill towards the country and us as human, I have a problem. So shares is equity, and that is stocks, and that is ownership of a company. So one share is one piece of a company. Real quick, that's the overview there. Shares.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Very sexy. Sometimes they go up, sometimes they go down, sometimes they go up for a particular reason, sometimes they don't, sometimes they stay the same. Very sexy, very cool, fast moving, slow moving. That's the deal, right? We
Right.
like that. Okay. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Bonds are dramatically different, whole different universe. Bonds are debt. So let's say a company needs money again, and they don't want to sell bits of their company, right? We got enough people that own our company.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We'll just sell some debt. We'll promise to
Mm.
pay you back. You give us X amount of dollars. We will promise to pay you interest, right? And at the end of a certain time, you get your money back. So you're
Oh,
going to let
okay.
us use your money, and we're going to pay you twice a year a percentage. And at the end of that year, you get your money back.
Oh, okay.
Not bad.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It's for that reason, because of the complexities that I'm not going into, is that reason that we
Right.
call
Yeah, it would be a great show because
yeah.
since that is part of the rebalancing piece,
Yes.
um, and then because I know governments, and that's definitely a different conversation. Have quite do a lot of the bonds, right? You can
Yep.
invest in governmental bonds.
Yes. Yeah. And we can definitely
Okay.
go into that because you brought up a really good thing. So there are government bonds and there are corporate bonds, and they act the same.
Okay.
Right? So we'll talk about that. The upside, though, is for this particular show that bonds typically don't return as much as stocks. So
Okay.
depending on who you ask, the stock market in general, since the crash of 29, has returned between, on average, 9 and 11, and some people will say 9 to 12, but let's say 9 to 11% on
Okay.
average every year. So that means some years we got 20%, some years we got negative 10, but on average, 9 to 11%. Okay.
Okay.
All right. The
Yeah.
bond market has returned between 6 and 9%.
Oh.
6 and 9%. So, which one should you have in your portfolio? Well, it really depends on your risk tolerance, right? And
Mhm.
it really depends on how you can handle. Most financial advisors say you need to have both, right? And so there are some of us out there are like, I don't want to risk my money. Well, you got to risk it to get the biscuit. So if you're going to, right, if you're going to invest, for most of us, we should have partially bonds and partially stocks. Some of us should have more bonds than stocks, and that's a good thing too. You want to know that. And then we want to diversify there too. We can diversify our bond portfolios between short-term, intermediate term, long-term bonds, corporate and government bonds. So we can have a very diversified bond portfolio, and there's a lot going on. The interest rate, the price of the bonds, all that kind of good stuff. We'll talk about that. And
Okay.
when you get into the stock market, we want to diversify that as well. Large companies, medium-sized companies, small companies, international companies, growth companies versus value companies. So we got a lot of moving pieces there. And it's at this point when we talk about all of that that most people go, "Oh my gosh, can I just put the key in the switch and turn it on and go? Can I just do that, right?" Uh,
Please. Yeah.
right? Well, you can, but if you learn just a little bit, then you'll know when your car runs out of gas, and
Right.
you'll know how to put some in, and you'll know how to take care of yourself, and you'll be able to come
That's
back
true.
to it. That's all.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, you don't need to know all
Yeah.
of that. I'll give you a
Very
little
important.
story. A really good friend of mine called me because a light came on her car, and then the car stopped working. I said, "What do you mean the car stopped working?" So I was in a meeting with a client, and my friend called me. And yes, I said, "I got to go. This is my friend. I need to go and help her." I asked her what happened, and she said it just stopped running. I've called AAA, I've called the dealer, I've called all these kind of people. They're telling me all kinds of stuff, and they're telling me about the model of the car. I don't understand any of that. All I know is I can't crank it up, and it stopped right here on PCH, right here on the road
Oh
to
wow.
beach, right? And I'm scared to death. So I, of course, heard all of that. And I went to a gas station and I bought a can of gas. And I went out to her car. I got there before AAA did. And
Uh-huh.
we put a gallon of gas in her car. First, we had to figure out how to do that because she had a funky gas tank.
Okay.
Put the gallon of gas in the car started up. Off she went to another gas station.
So it was like
You
no
got,
gas.
she's run out of gas. So, so you don't have to know the internal workings of an engine, but you do need to know when that little light comes on, it's time to get some gas, right?
Yeah, exactly. In fact, that's the first troubleshooter.
Right?
Gas, oil.
Exactly. So that's all we want folks to know is just enough so they
Yeah.
can have some understanding, and
Yeah.
so they can ask good questions and feel a little bit more confident about what's going on. So the long and the short of it, the way we pull this in is that rebalancing makes sure that you have the right amount of stocks and bonds that are appropriate for you because that's your lens to the market. That's how you want to look at the market, and that determines, in a real life sense, in some ways, how much you're going to make in the market, depending on how often you rebalance and
Mm.
what you rebalance back to. And that's why it's very important because you got to come back to basics, got to come back to what looks good to you because you don't want to.
Especially right, especially because I mean, obviously, these are dollars that you're going to need when you retire, when you have limited funds.
Mm-hmm.
So being, I guess, hyper vigilant is a good word, right? Because of the fact that you don't, anything can happen. Anything can happen once you turn 50, right? And and you may not have those abilities once you turn 65 to go out and still earn money to add to the coffers there. Usually uh, a lot of retired people are on fixed incomes.
Very true. And I love the way you said that. A lot of folks are. And the only thing that I would add to that, because I think you're spot on, is that rebalancing allows you to take advantage of the market. So when my
Mhm.
clients say to me, I've got enough time to retire or recover, I don't care. It's fine. I'll just let it do what it's going to do. I say, now we don't want to do that.
Mm.
I say we want to make money along the way. We want to take advantage of the market. So you can get flip flop by the market, or you can take advantage of it. And the way you take
Mhm.
advantage of the market is rebalancing. You sell the winners, you buy the losers. You sell high and you buy low throughout your career. And that helps you put stuff in your bank. It helps you reduce your average overall cost. Because the worst thing in the world is to be looking at your portfolio. I don't know if you could do this, but just imagine the worst thing in the world is be looking at your portfolio and saying, I don't have enough. This thing's got to grow. How much
Yeah.
better would it be to look at your portfolio and say, the market tanked, I get to buy cheap? Yay. So we want to create
Mm.
that. We want to create people that are going to say, the market is down, I'm going to buy cheap. And if I'm
Right.
going to buy cheap, that means that I sold high and I'm buying cheap. I bought it for 30. I sold it at 30. I'm buying it at 20, right? Whatever that was,
Mm.
right? So don't get caught up in the mistaken identity, mistaken force of action of thinking, hey, I'm in my retirement plan. I'm not going to touch the money until 65 or whenever, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
What do? I let it go. I just let it go. Don't do that. That's not what you want to do. You don't want to just let it go. Not here in the accumulation stage. Once you graduate from that and you're in the decumulation stage where you're working with your advisor and you're living on that money as a retired person, beautiful. You got to do some different workings, right? You have to
Right. Right.
make
Right.
sure your portfolio stays the way it's supposed to stay. But inside the retirement plan, while we're accumulating, while we're building our little nest egg, we want to take advantage of the market. So, and we know that the market goes up and down. So how do we take advantage of the market? We buy low when it goes down. Oops, sorry about that.
Right.
I get a little excited. We
You're
buy low.
excited about buying low.
I don't have a whole lot going on. So you get excited about buying low. And when the market goes up, we profit from that, right?
Okay.
And then we sell the winners and we buy the losers. We buy the losers because we know that the market is going to turn around. It does that. And when
Mm.
it turns around and those losers become expensive, sell those bad boys again because we sell high and we buy low. It's an interesting concept. Sell high, buy low. We've heard it before. We
Right.
just don't like to do it, but it works. And that's what rebalancing is. It's selling high.
And it's so interesting if people actually did do that. I mean, because look how many people during the 2007, 8, they bought so high in the marketplace, in the real estate marketplace,
Yep.
and they're doing that now.
Yep.
And there's going to be a turnaround.
Yep.
And then they're like, but I, then they're like, why did I do that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you could have waited. Who knows what inspired you to spend $400 to $400,000 above what the marketplace was asking for? I don't know. Maybe you were desperate for it, but it's good advice across the board.
It is. And I'm glad you brought that up because we have different, it affects us in different ways, right? So
Right.
maybe you have a family and you need a yard for your dog to play and for your kids to play. And so living in that 2-bedroom apartment with you and your wife and your 3 kids or whatever is
Mm-hmm.
just not working.
Right. Right. That's
It just
true.
ain't happening, right? She's beating on you to do something. Your kids are screaming in your ear. The dog's yapping. You need some more space and you need a different kinds of space. Okay. So maybe it is 2008 or 2007 and you decide, all right, I need a house. I need to buy a house. So you bought
Right.
one. All right. And then you come to find out 2 years later, wow, that was way expensive. And it's going to be a while before you get back to where you've got some equity. You're making some money on that house, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So not to get too far off point, but there's some other reasons that are going in there that made it necessary for you to buy that house. And even though
Right.
that is going to be, for some of us, your largest capital investment, uh, there's some other things going in there. You need a place for your family to sleep. You need a place
Mm-hmm.
for your husband to, you know, do the dishes, whatever it is that your husband does,
Right,
right?
right,
So,
right, right.
um,
Yeah.
so there's a lot going into there, which makes the risk that you're taking a little bit different. And it's the same with investing in your portfolio. Here in our 401k plan, we're buying low and selling high. That's what we do in our 401k plan. So we're going to invest a little bit differently than someone outside of our plan. Here, you're going to talk to me and I'm going to say, buy low, sell high. That's what we do. You go outside the
Mm-hmm.
portfolio, they're going to say, all right, well, let's not go down as far as next time.
Mm.
We don't do that. Let's
Mm.
let's put up some more defensive stocks in your portfolio. Maybe we'll put some more conservative stocks in your portfolio because what you're telling me now that is that even though you have a fairly middle of the road portfolio, it's not working for you,
Mm.
right? It's not working for you. So you probably need to be a little bit more defensive. Maybe you don't need to go all the way to bonds. Maybe you don't need to do that, but we need to make you just a little bit more defensive so that you don't take as big a risk and you feel more comfortable because
Mm-hmm.
our goal is for it not to go down low. Our goal is for
Right.
it to just keep steady at a level that you can handle, right? Keep steady at a level that
Mm-hmm.
that's appropriate for you. Inside your portfolio, I'm going to say, let's let it roll, baby. It's going down. We're going to take care of that down. We're going to get some down. We need some down. Let's get some down so that we can buy low. And then when it goes up, we're going to sell that too. That's right. That's how we roll over here.
Oh, that's how we rolling, huh?
That's how we roll. We like to sell high and buy low. That's what we want to do
Right,
here on
right.
this side of the
Well, the
fence.
whole idea is to create a profit.
Yeah. And we are not going to need the profit until we retire. So we ain't worried about what happened. We're not worried about the amount of money that we had in our 20s and our 30s and our 40s, right? That's why those
Mm-hmm.
those those portfolios, those little tests that I see out there that say how much money should you have in your 20s and your 30s and your 40s. I'm like, I don't know about that. Because I don't want to get people to get to the point where they say, you know what, I need to stop buying low and selling high so that I can get to this particular point when I'm 35.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah.
The result might be similar, but we're looking at this the wrong way. We're looking at it at the point of my balance is increasing, 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 instead of looking at it as I got a lot of stuff that's cheap. So all I need
Yeah.
to do is wait till the market comes back a little bit. And because I was able to buy things really cheap.
Mm-hmm.
Even if the
Mm-hmm.
market ain't back all the way, I bought my stuff so cheap that it's gonna be good.
Right.
Make sense?
Yeah.
That's it.
No, no, for sure.
You know,
Yeah. So
we
again,
want to
but
take advantage of it.
if they're having conversations and the rebalancing and speaking with their advisors, then they hopefully they will understand what that looks like and how much attention they should be paying to their, at each age, at each decade, because you have different needs for each
Yeah.
decade.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. My grandmother used to make peach pies, apple pies, strawberry pies. And when she would go to the store and she saw that the apples were on sale, well, she made apple pies.
Hmm.
When she saw that the apples were up, but the peaches were on sale, she made peach pies.
Hmm.
It's that simple, right? We
Yeah.
still got the pie. We're still buying, right? We're
Right.
still
Just
buying.
might be a different time.
It's just another time. We buy what's on sale. We buy what's
Hmm.
cheap. That's where we want to buy what's cheap. We're going to eat it right now, right?
Right. Right.
We're not
Exactly.
going to buy what's cheap now, can it, and pull it out later. Now we'll can some fresh stuff, like we'll can some, I don't know, some other things, right? That's a different discussion.
That's a
We are,
different
we're
discussion.
making pies. We're making pies now.
A
We make
whole
pies.
different image in my mind.
Whole different. It ain't there. It's all different.
Right.
Yeah, so we're making pies. So yeah, we don't make pies out of canned vegetables. We're not doing that. Or
Mm-mm. I
canned
hope not.
no pies out of fresh stuff.
Right.
Okay. All right. So now
Great.
that my family hates me and my ex-girlfriend is going to throw things at me, all
Mm-hmm.
for a good cause. Let's read your bio one more time. And
Okay.
not if you get the last word. Is that okay?
Okay. All right.
'Cause, you know, I'm full of last words and stuff. Okay. Well, folks, thank you for joining Crystal and myself. I'm going to read Crystal's bio, and then I'll let her get the last word. So say, hi, Crystal. She is a business coach and consultant. She's the CEO of Mitchell Business Solutions. She's a co-director of Recycling Black Dollars. She's the co-host of The Business Zone with Crystal and Gilbert's, another weekly online radio show. She's an instructor at Mount San Antonio Community College, a certified network for teaching entrepreneurship instructor, and Crystal is actually a QuickBooks Pro Advisor financial strategist. So, with all of that, Ms. Mitchell, even though you don't
Yes.
sleep, you get to have the last word.
Well, I think the last word is we're actually in, coming up to the third quarter of this year. And so this is the time I think, I know in my practice, I start having my clients look at their financials, their profits, their revenues to see if they're on point, if they're on target for what they had planned. So the fall is a good time. The third and the fourth quarter is really a good time to take a look before the end of the year. So great time at rebalancing if this is part of your normal practice. And just make it a time. Quarters work, man, because it's so much easier to keep track of a quarter than to be trying to do it on a weekly basis. So we're in the very first month of the third quarter. So this is a perfect time to do that. So give your plan advisor, your retirement plan advisor, a call or speak to whoever your HR department, and check on where your money is going, where it is today, and where you want to be tomorrow.
Cool. Great. I couldn't have said it better. And also,
All
remember,
right.
yeah, you can hit the button. They'll do it for you.
And it'll do it for you.
Thank you, Crystal. Goodbye. Goodbye, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye, everyone. See you next week.